Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on A World Awakening. Um, I've had a wonderful encounter with a new friend named Michelle Swope. She will be our guest tonight. Uh, I I don't even know what to say. She's one of the most distinctive, most unique individuals that I have ever encountered, and she's very gifted, and she's very kind. And I think what the world needs now is Michelle. So without further ado, please help me welcome my new friend, Michelle Swope.
Hello.
Hi, darling.
I don't know how to follow up that intro. Thank you.
I just, the little bit of contact that we've had recently. It's wonderful how we have friends that put us together that say, you need to know her, or you
Yeah.
need to know him, or, it's like they know better than we do who to put together, how the puzzle pieces are going to fit.
Yeah.
And so I always say yes to the universe, and I always listen to my friends. There's so much about you that I want you to introduce yourself to our audience because and I told you before we even did the show, just think of this as we're just two girlfriends just chatting back and forth with a whole lot of eavesdroppers, but take a few minutes and acknowledge the eavesdroppers and tell them who you are, why you're here, and what your purpose is.
As Andrea said, I'm Michelle Swope. I'm a writer. I'm doing freelance right now. I've been writing about horror movies since 2016 for various online outlets. Currently have a column at Bloody Disgusting. I also do movie reviews and interviews and things like that for them when they need me. But I have a monthly column where I talk about all things paranormal. And that's how Andrea and I connected through a mutual friend who I had interviewed last year for my column. Um, and it's kind of a new column. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, maybe. I've tried to touch on all different kinds of topics, and my hope is that people will be more open minded about the unexplained things that you don't understand. That we could at least have a conversation about those things. That's my hope. And so that's how Andrea and I connected. I asked her if she wanted to be interviewed for my column, and this is a first. This is the first time I've ever asked someone for an interview and then they've turned around and asked me to do something. So I feel like out of my element a little bit. I'll say that.
Well, but isn't it a comfy place? Don't you feel like it's an okay place for you to be and for you to be open and just talk about what you do and why you do it, and to know that everyone that's watching this embraces both of us, and that's a really lovely feeling to know that you've got the interest of virtually everybody that's watching this broadcast or who will later watch it in the archive. Um, One of the things that I appreciated about you right away was the questions that you asked me for our you had a very unique take on things. You asked me questions that I haven't been asked before. And I
Oh,
appreciate that after doing, I don't know how many thousands of interviews, to be engaged with someone in conversation where it's refreshing and it's covering new ground is I particularly appreciated. So I knew that I was jiving with you intellectually, that we were really riding the same wave, on the same wavelength, as it were, same frequency. Um, but the first question that I'm going to ask you, I ask a lot of my guests. And it's it might sound like common sense, but sometimes it takes them back a little bit. And I always ask, how old were you when you had your first paranormal experience, and how did it change your life?
Oh my gosh. I don't know the age exactly. Pretty young. Um, there was always something in our home,
Mhm.
and I always believed it was attached to my mother. Um, Gosh, I was little. It started out with, she would tell us stories about when she was a kid. There was 9 kids in her family, and she would tell us how they all piled into the same bed at night, and how something would walk through their bedroom and bump the bed. And then as I got older, I realized that there was activity in our home all the time, regardless of where we lived.
Mhm.
Um, I never felt afraid growing up in that. There was nothing that ever felt threatening.
Mhm.
It was just kind of that I acknowledged that it was there. And it was just kind of a part of our everyday life. Items would go missing and turn up in odd places later. Sometimes shadow people. Um, we lived in this one house, and I was say maybe 11, 12. And it had, like, old 70s sunken living rooms.
Yes.
Yeah, we had one of those. And so on one side was my parents' bedroom, and on the other side of the sunken living room was a hallway and my bedroom and a bathroom and my brother's bedroom. And my mother, we'd be at school all day, and my stepfather would be at work. And at night, when we'd be home, she would every day tell us that she would be in the opposite end of the house in her room. She would hear from the bathroom on our side banging underneath the bathroom floor. And we just kind of laughed it off because none of us had experienced this. My brother and I were in our room, all night. Never heard that. Well, one night, my family wanted to go out to eat. And there was some reason I didn't want to go. And it was kind of rare that they would let me stay home by myself at that age. And so I went in my parents' bedroom to watch their TV. That was kind of a rare thing I got to do by myself. And so I'm in the house alone on my parents' side of the house. And all of a sudden, I hear this frantic, desperate banging from the bottom of that bathroom floor on the other side of the house. That did scare me, because I was home alone and I didn't know what to do. And it was kind of scary, but that has really stuck with me all these years. The fact that I finally heard it, but only that time that I was home alone.
Mhm.
And it would only happen to my mother when all of us were out of the house. Um, my mother came home. I told them what happened. I think the next day, probably. She went outside and she opened the door to the crawl space under the house, and she did something like, she yelled, "Get out! You're not welcome here," or something like that. Um, and I don't think we heard that bang on the floor anymore. Other, like, really mundane things would happen. Like I said, objects missing and movements and shadow people here and there. But that's the scariest thing from growing up. But there was always something in our house, and it was just, I always believed it was attached to my mother. I can't explain that. When I
Well,
moved into
but
my
that
own
makes
house,
sense. It does make sense though, Michelle. I mean, because if if the same type of activity persisted from house to house to house, do you know how many people have insisted that they moved into a haunted house and then moved out and moved right back into another quote unquote haunted house because of an attachment that was formed with one of the members of the family? It's actually quite common. the
Yeah,
person is haunted, not the house that they're living in.
right. That's what I always believed. That's what I came to believe. My brother was kind of always a skeptic, even though he experienced the same things that we did. Um, but I just always told myself that it was attached to my mother. That's how I explained it, because it was just there was always just something around us growing up all the time. So that's pretty much my introduction to the paranormal. That's why I got interested in horror movies, probably, and all things spooky is because of growing up in that environment.
Do you like the feeling of being scared?
I do. And it's kind of taken on a new meaning for me. About 10 years ago, I became disabled due to spinal disease.
I'm sorry.
And thank you. Um, and that has made me look at horror and film in general, but especially horror in kind of a different way, because I can experience my fears. I mean, well, I could do this before, but it seems a lot more stronger to me now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can turn on a movie for 2 hours and be really afraid and kind of get out a lot of the fear that I carry around with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Like a
cathartic.
purging of it.
Yes, it's therapeutic being afraid for me.
I hate it. I don't understand why anybody. I have only seen one horror movie in my entire life, and it was The Conjuring because I had to. And
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, really?
really, I have never ever seen another horror flick ever. Nor would I feel any. Well, I guess when you grow up in the kind of house that I did, you don't need to go to the movies to be afraid. Um,
Right.
but I don't like the sensation at all. It is anathema to me. Um, and I find that in those moments where I do feel fearful, whether it be because of a dangerous circumstance or something that suddenly happens that kind of throws me off my game, I get angry about it and just basically expel it, whatever it is, just expel it from my environment. Um, and I don't know if that's kind of some PTSD from growing up at the farm or what it is that, but I don't. It doesn't. Fear does not make me feel more alive. A
Oh,
lot of people
yeah.
answer that question that way. It makes me feel the fear of death makes me feel more alive. And that seems so utterly counterintuitive to me. I can't even wrap my head around it. But that has not ever been my take nor my the focus of my work. I don't perceive our family story to be a horror story. I think it's a love story with a wicked supernatural twist, but it's foundationally love. So yeah, so in that respect, we are different. That you're attracted to it, and that I am repelled by it. Um,
Yeah.
is yeah, just like I got no room in my life for fear. I just don't, the sensation of it. I think that people have a tendency to often relinquish their own personal power to fear, rather than using it as that tap on the shoulder, that little tool, that anxiety that you feel, or that instinct or intuition that kicks in when you're in a danger zone, when there is a threat that you perceive, that it's supposed to kick in to warn you, danger, Will Robinson, get out of there, get out of there. Um, and that, but a lot of the people that I've met in the paranormal over all the years that I've been doing what I'm doing, I have encountered a lot of people who thrive on it, who feel more alive because of it, who welcome it, who seek that sensation out. And that is absolute anathema to me. I have no way to wrap my head around that.
That kind of makes sense to me, though, in a way. I mean, I'll tell you, I have to tell you something. The only person I shared this with, and we're totally spoiling the interview that's coming out with you in March. It was going to be a surprise, but oh well, it's out. It's out. I came away from talking with you that day really surprised because you came out of a situation that sounds really terrifying, and is a terrifying story to a lot of people, not even just because of the movie. And you somehow came out of that and you have all this positive energy about you. And I thought that was so interesting and so amazing, I have to say. And like, if you have a secret for how you did that, please share it with me sometime because, yeah, I was kind of blown away by that.
I consider the 10 years that I lived at the farm to be the most informative and most enlightening period of my entire life. And I'm not the only one in my family that feels that way. Um, I feel privileged to have experienced what I have, and to know, not to, wish or believe or think or hope, but to know that there is something beyond our mortal existence, that it isn't just ashes to ashes, dust to dust, that we, in some way, shape, and form, go on from this life, that all this life experience is not wasted, but collectively goes with us. Um, but I don't know where we're going, why we're here, where we're going, why we came here in the first place, and what, is this like recycled souls? Is there a cyclical nature to life and death in the afterlife? And there's the mysteries, the mysticism of it, is really quite fascinating to me. And it doesn't even matter to me. I think it's safe to presuppose that we're not going to get these answers in this realm, and that's okay, because just the curiosity, just the fascination about it, just knowing that there's something out there. Somebody, I did an interview actually before, a couple of hours ago, before I actually did my two shows tonight back to back. And I told my interviewer, I don't care who the spirits were. It's not that I don't care about them, but I don't care what their names were, or when they lived at the farm, or how long they lived at the farm. Who they were bears no relevance to me. That they still are is the miracle. To me, that's the most amazing thing, that they still are. And so from my early age, saw my first full body apparition at the age of 12. And nobody needed to convince me after that. I mean, it was done. It was just a given. It was accepted. It was my personal paradigm shift in terms of my own understanding and knowledge of life and death. And to me, it brings me great comfort and joy to know that it's not just over when it's over. It's just the beginning. It's not the end. And so that transcendental transformation that we all undergo is not something that I fear at all. It's not something that I necessarily welcome or embrace. I am perfectly happy being alive on this plane of action right now. Even when I'm miserable, there's a part of me that's happy just to be here and be alive and have this experience. But to know that there's something else is one of the two most important questions that I think anyone can ask or answer. And I have the answer to both of them. Is there something beyond our mortal existence? Yes. Are we alone in the universe? No. And everything else is like, does it even matter when you've got your bases covered already with
Yeah.
based on personal experience? No, I don't know if honestly, Michelle, I don't know if I hadn't experienced what I have in this life, if I would believe it. I really don't. And I feel graced and I feel blessed to have been touched by spirit. I do.
See, that's what I'm saying. You came away from an experience that some of it sounds traumatizing, based on
Was
some of
traumatizing.
these. Right. Some of it's,
Yeah.
I know. A lot of people would, you know what I mean, come
Mhm.
away from an experience like that and maybe react negatively, but you've taken something like wonderful from that, and you're this just the positivity that comes off of you, just talking to you was so interesting and so wonderful to me.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so glad. I felt like we connected on a very profound level with great ease. No, just not just that we have something in common. It was way beyond that. It felt more spiritual to me. And I think that part of what I could relate to with you is that, we've shared like experiences and that you're drawn to this field with purpose and reason. And so am I. And so that's something that we have in common. It's kind of like you're part of my sisterhood now.
oh, that's so amazing. I'm so happy.
I'm so glad. I truly am. Um, you came very highly recommended to me.
Oh,
And I felt like I wanted to give you a platform to share whatever you want to share. I think I told you before I booked you that if you came on the show, it would be your show. So what do you want to talk about?
oh my gosh. There's so much. um as far as the paranormal goes, I have had a very unpleasant experience. Um,
Do you want to share it?
that is the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me. My husband and I have been together for about, oh gosh, 14 years or something. Back in 2010, we moved to Radford, Virginia. I don't
Mhm.
know if you're familiar with St. Albans
Yes.
Sanatorium.
Yes.
And we were both into the paranormal and horror movies and the same things. That's why we got together in the first place. And so we found this apartment that was directly across the street from St. Albans. And we were like, oh, this is perfect. There was a funeral home right beneath our balcony.
Mhm.
And I will mention there was a river. You and I talked about rivers.
Yes.
Yep. And I do think there's a connection there for sure.
Mhm.
And so that was the environment. And then we got involved with St. Albans, helping with like paranormal tours and doing our own paranormal investigations. They also run a haunted house. um, we both have experienced various things, but what we learned pretty quickly was that things loved to attach to people and go home with you from St. Albans if you didn't protect yourself.
Mhm.
And people warned us, and I think we both laughed it off because
Mhm.
either one of us had had anything like that happen before, and it'll be fine. And I grew up around paranormal stuff, it'll be fine. Things attached to us and came home with us. And this is something that I haven't talked about until I started doing this column, and I didn't know how people would react to it.
Right.
That's why I've never told the story before my column and you. Um, but we had various things that would, like, piggyback with us, come home with us that we had to deal with. But there was something one night I went to bed early. If I wasn't feeling well. And so I was laying in bed alone. My husband was up in the living room. I think my daughter was up out there. Um, and as I'm lying in bed, I looked at the ceiling and there was this black shape. Um, I didn't really have, like any features or anything like that. It just kind of looked like a big black blob on my ceiling. And it started at the opposite side of the bedroom and started crawling across the ceiling towards me. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I think I was probably paralyzed for at least a few seconds or a few minutes until I was able to scream for my husband, who came running in there. And when he tried to turn the light on, the light bulb blew out. And he saw it. My daughter experienced it. And it was something very dark and very unpleasant. And that's my first and only encounter with something like that. And that was such an intense experience for me that I eventually left the paranormal completely for a little over a decade until I started doing this column. Until I, for whatever reason, felt comfortable and wanted to tell my story and tell other people's stories, talk to people like you about your experiences. I decided I was ready a couple of years ago, but I had nothing at all to do with paranormal for a little over a decade because of that one experience. It was that bad.
Well, I'll tell you, there was an incident at the farmhouse that involved very much a similar entity. And it was hovering over me. My sister Cindy was laying in a sleeping bag on my floor. We had a company, and she had given her bed to one of the kids that was spending the night. And so she was sleeping on my floor in her sleeping bag. And she had a sense of something in the room. It was the middle of the night. There was a little night light on in the room, and she looked up, and it was exactly as you described, only it was an undulating mass hovering over me, directly over me in my bed. And she said what terrified her was not so much what she saw hovering over me, but she said it looked like it was breathing for me. She thought I was dead. It looked like it was breathing, but I wasn't moving at all. And when it noticed that she noticed it, it came sweeping down off of me and grabbed a hold of her ankle and dragged her across the floor of my bedroom and started dragging her down the stairs face first. And it was only her presence of mind to cuff her arm around the banister that kept her from being dragged all the way down the stairs. And people think it's all fun and games. They don't understand that we live in a multidimensional universe. We live in a 3D realm where good and evil exist. And if given the opportunity, or not even necessarily if given the opportunity, evil will insidiously infiltrate an environment, will take the opportunity. And that scared her probably more than any experience that we had at the farm. She told me when she told me the story, she said, I've danced with the devil and lived to tell about it. And now I wonder, Cindy died when she was 2 months old and was brought back to life on an operating table. And I've often wondered if the reason why the spirits approached her so frequently is because she had been to the other side and they knew who she was. And then she came back, and so maybe they felt like she was the one that would be easy enough to communicate with. And the same thing had happened to my mother. My mother had a near-death experience when she was much younger. And of all 7 of us, those were the 2 that had the most frequent encounters. But that black blob, Cindy said that of everything that she experienced in the farm, that was the most horrifying, because she thought that it had killed me and that she was next.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
And
is.
wonder that Warner Brothers didn't want to include a scene like that in The Conjuring. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were right. You know, that literally would have emptied the theater. Would have emptied the theater. It's a lot easier to digest and absorb information like that coming off of a page in a book than seeing it on the silver screen.
Right. Right. And also, well, there's also the challenge of being able to bring something like that, to life on screen, in an authentic way.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do that. I mean, I
It's a
know.
real challenge. It is.
Right. I know we're talking about James Wan on The Conjuring, who's amazing, but I'm just saying, maybe he would have done a great job. But yeah, there's probably a lot of reasons. Oh, I was so surprised when you told me that. When I said, why didn't they want to use it? You said, because it was too scary. And I was like, what? But the more I thought about it, like you just said, it does make sense.
Well, that was what I just described to you, was one of 1,000 different things that happened over the course of a decade. There were literally life-threatening things that happened at that farmhouse. People think it's, I'm going to be a paranormal investigator. I'm going to get my fresh black t-shirt and declare myself the world's leading expert before the ink is dry on the thing, and go off and start doing, home investigations and, authentic haunted places around America. There are a number of groups that I've interviewed with over the course of the last decade or so. I've heard over and over and over again that they won't let a new member in until they've read my trilogy, because they feel that it protects them and that it informs them of what they're getting into in a way that nothing else can. And I have to agree with that. I think that it really is the most authentic haunted house story out there, in its detail and its scope, and in being so forthright. There are only a few things that happened at that farm that my sisters asked me not to include. Just a very few things that were either so painful or so personal that they didn't want them included in the books originally. Now they don't care. Now they're like, yeah, okay, people love us anyway, and nobody hates us, and we're not being scrutinized and condemned, and if we are, we don't know about it, so we don't care. So someday I will put those other stories out. But for the most part, about 98 or 99% of what happened to us at that farm, for better for worse, are in the books, and it is very revealing. It's in fact, I have one chapter called "It's All Fun and Games Until Someone Gets Hurt," and that's true. Paranormal investigators need to be informed, need to know what they're getting into. I mean, like you said, you go to St. Albans and you're like, oh, attachments, yeah, 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 just because you don't believe in attachments doesn't mean they don't form. In the same
Right.
way that my mother told my father, your the existence of the spirits is not contingent upon your belief in them.
Right. Right. Well, one thing that I think a lot of paranormal investigators do wrong, and this had a lot to do with the horrible experience that I had, is don't go in there and provoke.
Right.
Don't be angry. Don't be disrespectful.
Right.
Think of them as how you would treat another human being that's
Right.
flesh and blood.
If you were
Okay?
walking into their
You
home.
have to look at it that way. And there's some people who enjoy stirring things up or messing with dark, negative energies that you probably shouldn't mess around with. And there was a lot of that going on at St. Albans, which I
Yeah,
think contributed to our experience too.
I'm
Um,
sure.
you can't go into paranormal investigating that way. I can tell you from experience that's not the way to go into it. I was never a person who provoked, but I was seeing people do it,
Yeah.
you know, and stirring up negativity. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not the way to approach it. Um, yeah, treat them like you would treat anyone else. I really think, and I mean, all these years later, I can say this now because I'm not there anymore and I don't care. But I don't agree with the fact that they still hold a haunted house there. I find it to be very exploitative.
Yes. Yeah. I
Um,
agree.
I have a problem with that now. And I participated in it. I worked there years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But now, in hindsight, all these
Well,
years later,
you've evolved.
I feel bad about it.
Yeah, you've evolved, and they're still doing their. I mean, leave the haunted house to Disney World. You
Right.
know, let them do that, but not on a historically haunted location where it's just like making fun of, especially St. Albans with
Yeah.
its morose history.
Oh, yeah.
Like St. Albans and Penhurst, and
Mhm.
the pain and the suffering and the grief and the deprivation and the history of these asylums and institutions are beyond horrific.
Yeah.
They are. And to go in there and to be anything other than reverent um, is, to me, anathema. I mean,
Yeah.
how could you be so unkind?
Right.
Just try for a moment to imagine what these people's lives were like while they were institutionalized there. And so many died there.
Oh,
So,
yeah. A lot. A lot.
yeah, mass graves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, so I don't provoke at all. Don't try to stir up negative energies, and yeah, be respectful. I just don't do things that are exploitative, could be interpreted as exploitative. Learn the history of the location that you're dealing with. First of all, that's really helpful. But I just feel so bad about participating in the haunted house, and now I really, really don't like that they still do it. And I'm saying that on the internet, and I don't care because it's how I feel, and I think it's the right way to look at the situation. Honestly.
Well, the spirits can hear you. And if you still feel badly about that, just tell them you're sorry and you will be forgiven. I mean, you were doing something out of curiosity and fascination, and you were much younger, and you didn't really understand the full weight and ramifications of it at that time in your life, and now you do. And
Yeah.
so I do believe that all is forgiven for you. I really do. I think that they understand that you are here much more as an advocate, that you're not out to exploit them, but to advocate for them. I really do believe that.
I hope so.
And they know, I mean, they're in a realm where there is no space-time continuum.
Right.
They are free to fly, and they know everything that's going on. I'll tell you a case in point, which is it's bizarre. I still can't wrap my head around it, Michelle, honest to God. But years and years ago, I think it was like 2015, I went to Pennhurst in Pennsylvania for the one and only time that I will ever be at Pennhurst, because I found the vibration there, the frequency, just oppressive, absolutely oppressive. But we were in a relatively large group. There were maybe about 30 of us, um, and including the owners at the time, because they wanted, they had heard about me in the movie, and they wanted to meet me, and they wanted to do the tour with me and all of that. So they stayed with me. And two of them had a Pandora's box, and my friend George had his spirit box, and they set it up. I don't know if you've ever been to Pennhurst, but there was in the Devon building where they kept all the children. There was a downstairs below ground area, and they had all of the stuff set up. And we walked in, and George said, uh, I have Andrea Perrin with me. Is there anyone out there that knows what movie is associated with her family's story? And through the spirit box and the echo box and the Pandora's box and something else, were like 4 devices simultaneously, it all came out, The Conjuring, at
Wow.
once. And a gasp just passed through the room, just absolutely passed through the room. Like, what was that, and how could they possibly know? And why are they speaking through all the devices at once? So for me, it seems to me that if you extrapolate that experience out, either they've got a big ass movie theater wherever they are, or they're around us all the time and they see what's going on. Or
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
they're all completely surrounded by spirit, and they are very well aware of what's going on in this realm. Freaked me out a little bit, though.
I bet. I bet it did. That would be wild. Yeah. I do feel like they're around us all the time for the most part.
Do you feel like you have guides, that you have spirits that are very supportive of you, that watch out for you?
Not specifically. I don't think so.
Well, you do. You do. Um, I don't know who she is, but there is an elderly woman. I don't know if she's related to you, maybe a friend that has passed on, but an elderly woman with shimmering silver hair. Shimmering silver hair. It doesn't even look real. It's so beautiful. Who is watching out over you. And just a few moments ago, and you go back and look at this, and I think that you will see over your right shoulder where that light is. There's a light in the corner that kind of shoots up out of that lamp.
Yeah.
I saw her standing there just a few moments ago. She's
Oh,
short, really short.
oh my god. That's crazy. That just gave me such chills, especially when you described her hair. Um, gosh, you're gonna make me cry on here, aren't you, Andrea? Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry on here. Please let me cry.
I don't even know who she is. She just presented to me just for a moment, just a glimpse. No, and I don't even know if she'll show up on the film or if I just saw her attached to you. But as benevolent, as beautiful, as loving a presence as I have ever seen with another person. And I don't consider myself a psychic or a medium. I don't actually label myself as anything except a radical feminist. I mean, other than that, that's the only label that I will wear. But occasionally, I'll just have a sighting like that, even online. Doesn't even have to be in person. So, do you know who she is?
Well, and we had talked really briefly about this, but I just lost my mother in December, right before Christmas.
Yes.
And it was unexpected and a really unpleasant family situation and everything. But I mean, you were describing her. All I could think about was my mother, and all I could see was her hair, and that would totally look like her hair. Um, and
She's very happy, honey. She is.
I have to tell you, like, yeah, and it's obvious, recent, and something I haven't really dealt with a lot, but I always felt like because there was activity that seemed to be attached to her growing up, that when she passed, this is going to sound crazy to some people, but I felt like there would be some sign, or, I would see something, and absolutely nothing has happened. Nothing. And it's made me kind of depressed, like, well, maybe there really isn't anything,
Oh,
I
no,
feel
there really is.
like she would, show up somehow.
She will.
So
Talk to her.
I have to
Just
tell
talk
you,
to her.
that's so comforting. That is so comforting to hear. That you just totally described my mom, and yeah, that's really comforting.
I'm
So,
so
thank
glad. I'm so glad that it happened tonight. I'm so glad that I just got this like incredible vision of her. She's so beautiful and she's so happy and she's so proud of you. So take that in and talk to her. What was the thing that you would do together? Would you sit and have a cup of coffee together? Would you?
Yeah,
Okay.
we talked on the phone constantly, like,
Okay.
as an adult.
Get her favorite china out and put 2 cups on the table and sit and have a cup of coffee with her and tell her. And I promise you, within the next week or two, you are going to be calling me on this magical phone going, oh my God, Andrea, you were right. And here she is. She would not have revealed herself to me if she wasn't ready to reveal herself to you. She just needs to know that you're ready to receive her. There is no more pain, my darling. There is no more pain. Take comfort in that.
It is extremely comforting. It's the most comforting thing that has happened or that anyone has said to me since December, honestly.
Good.
I mean, it's been really hard. So
I know.
that is, I have been wondering, why haven't I seen something, knowing my mom and how things always were in our relationship. I just thought something, just even a tiny, and nothing, and I felt really hopeless because nothing has
Well,
happened.
it's
I haven't really
something.
told anybody this, you know?
I don't know why she chose me to for this to happen tonight. For this to spontaneously happen on live, a live show. I mean, I don't know why this happened the way that it did, and why was privileged to see her. But I see a marked resemblance between you and her.
Yeah,
Just
I'm sure. Yeah, I
yeah,
look just like her.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's your genetic template. You're like stamped. Yeah, you are. I mean, it's just different hair. That's it.
yeah, different hair. Exactly, in the same
Yeah.
face. Yeah, you're so right. And I just, yeah, you totally, totally described her so well. But
Oh, I'm
that
so
is so
glad.
comforting. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
I don't know how we've blown through an hour, my darling, but my producer's telling me to wind it down. I feel love for you. I truly do. And I want you to know that the experience that we just shared, I'm sure inspired other people tonight. And so that's the message that I will leave our viewers with tonight. They're not really gone. If you're missing someone that you perceive that you've lost in this life, they're not really gone. Talk to them and acknowledge them and embrace them and include them in your experiences that you would have wanted to in life. And you will be amazed by the connection that is made and that will persist for the rest of your life until you are joined again in another realm. And so, with that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being my guest tonight. And I will remind all of our viewers to be the change you wish to see in the world, and always be the beacon, be the light you seek. Good night, everyone.